السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with Bab al-Aniyah, the chapter of utensils and plates and containers and so on, from the book of al-Murbi in the explanation of Zad al-Mustaqni. And this is where we stopped at the statement saying وَتُبَاحُ آنية الكفار. This is the matn of Zad al-Mustaqni, وَتُبَاحُ آنية الكفار. So after mentioning the rulings of what's pure and what's impure from the aniya, from the dishes, the containers, the thing that the water is in it for people to use it for wudu or for ghusl, or in general, then he talks about aniyatul kuffar, the aniya, the containers that belongs to the disbelievers and what's the rulings of it. I would first read the first mas'ala in the red. He says وَتُبَاحُ آنِيَةُ الْكُفَّارِ وَلَوْ لَمْ تَحِلَّ ذَبَائِحُهُم. So this is the first mas'ala here. وَتُبَاح, tubah from al-mubah, from abaha, that means it's permissible, that it's valid to be used. آنِيَةُ الْكُفَّار, all the containers, whether it's dishes, bottles, forks, spoons, anything. وَتُبَاحُ آنِيَةُ الْكُفَّارِ, it's permissible to use the dishes, the containers of the kuffar, of the disbelievers. In the sharh he says, as you see in front of us, إِن لَمْ تُعْلَمْ نَجَاسَتُهَا, unless the najasa is not known. Unless the najasa is not known. So here that means the aniya, the dishes of the kuffar, it is permissible, and that's the mas'ala. إِن لَمْ تُعْلَمْ نَجَاسَتُهَا, if the najasa is not known, this is the same ruling whether it's the aniya from the kuffar or from the Muslimin. If a Muslim has a dish, and you know for sure that this dish has najasa in it, is it permissible to be used before it's been washed? Of course not. So it's not about the najasa of the container, it's about now the mas'ala is aniyatul kuffar. The aniya of the kuffar, it's mubah, it's permissible. So in the sharh when he said إِلَّمْ تُعْلَمْ نَجَاسَتُهَا, if its najasa is not known, which is the same ruling whether it's Muslimin or kuffar. He says وَلَوْ لَمْ تَحِلَّ ذَبَائِحُهُم, even وَلَوْ لَمْ, even if their ذبائح, if their animals that are slaughtered is not permissible for us to eat. Who are the ones that they're slaughtering? The animals that they slaughter is not permissible for us to eat. Anyone other than the Jews and the Christians. So atheists, Buddhists, whatever there is, they slaughtered an animal, it's not permissible for us to eat. He says can majus, and majus, those who worship the fire. So that means what? That means also their containers are permissible for us to use unless there's no najasa known in it. So this is the asl, this is the foundation, this is the principle that is to be followed. And the ulama, whenever they would give a ruling, either there's a hadith to prove the authenticity of their opinion, or they refer to a foundation in the religion that is already known from the deen of al-Islam and from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Before he mentioned the hadith, one of the principles that are very clear that we have to always follow, that al-asl, that means the ruling of everything is tahir, or is pure, unless proven otherwise. It's not the opposite. So when you see something, when you have something, then everything is pure, unless proven otherwise. So this comes under this category of things. But he mentioned here the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He says لأنه صلى الله عليه وسلم توضأ من مزادة مشركة. يقول متفق عليه. Because the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he made tahara he made طهارة, the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام توضأ, he made wudu من مزادة مشركة. المزادة is the water skin from a mushrika. And this long hadith, and the ulama, they always talk about that wordings in the sharh that he mentioned, that the hadith did not mention that the Prophet ﷺ made wudu from this mazada of this mushrika, but rather he drank from it ﷺ, and he ordered the Sahaba, those who were in the state of janaba, that they had to take a shower as an obligation, to use the water in it. So the same ruling, the end result is the same. But whether the wordings of the hadith, as he mentioned here in the sharh, is correct or not, the final result is the same. So the Prophet ﷺ used it, and she was mushrika at that time. So لأنه صلى الله عليه وسلم توضأ من مزادة مشركة, متفق عليه. He says then, the next مسألة, I would read the matn first. وثيابهم إن جهل حالها. وثيابهم, and their thiyab. Their thiyab meaning their clothing, their garments. And he mentions in the sharh, وتباح ثيابهم. So the same rulings, that's why he did not repeat the word tubah again. In the sharh he mentioned it. So the thiyab, the garments of the kuffar, is permissible. It's permissible for the Muslimin to do what with it? To wear it. So without being washed. If something is washed, then that's an obvious thing, it's permissible. But here, if it's not washed, as far as the rulings are concerned, I mean, a person would not wear something that is not washed from a Muslim even, right? But we're talking here about ahkam, rulings, that things will depend on it. So when he says here, وَتُبَاحُ ثِيَابُهُم, their thiyab is not najisa, is not impure, just the fact that they are disbelievers. أي ثياب الكفار. أي ثياب الكفار. ولو وليت عورتهم. Even if it وليت عورتهم. عورتهم is their private parts. العورة is the private part. And عورتهم, their private parts. And وليت, that means even if it touched their private parts. So, something that they wear, pants without underwear, for example. Something like this. Is it najisa just because a kafir is wearing it? The answer is no. We go back to the original ruling of things, is everything is proven pure unless proven otherwise. Everything is pure unless proven otherwise. ولو وليت عورتهم كالسراويل. السراويل is the plural of sirwal. And a sirwal, in the books of fiqh in the past, they refer to it of what we use nowadays as underwear. But also it refers to the pants in general. So this is now to be understood with that meaning. So that means all of it is pure unless proven otherwise. He says, in juhila haluha. If its hal, if its state is juhil in the passive tense, or if you want to say it in jahila halaha. So this is a grammatic point here. In juhila haluha, as we say, the dabt or the tashkil on the matn here in the passive tense, if its state is not known, if we're ignorant about what's in its state, that means وَلَمْ تُعْلَمْ نَجَاسَتُهَا, we do not know the najasa of it. So we don't have to check, we don't have to investigate. If it's not known that is to be impure, then the original ruling is that it's pure. If you want to read it without the passive tense, you can say in jahila halaha. So you remove the dhamma from the jim and the ha. In the first word, jahila and halaha. Meaning referring to the individual, if the individual is not aware of its state. But anyway, we're sticking to the dabt of what's mentioned here, in juhila haluha. He says in the sharh, وَلَمْ تُعْلَمْ نَجَاسَتُهَا, and it's not known that it's impure. The same ruling as applied as the aniyah, the same thing with الثياب, which is the garments. Now he mentions the evidence. لأن الأصل الطهارة فلا تزول بالشك. And remember this asl, memorize this asl. This is qaida, this is a principle. لأن الأصل is the foundation, a principle. What's the principle here? Is الطهارة. Everything is pure. فلا تزول بالشك. does not get removed with doubt. So doubt does not change a ruling. Doubt does not change a ruling. What change something that is already known with yaqeen, with certainty, is to be removed with yaqeen like it. The same thing as it will come, inshallah ta'ala, with breaking the wudu and things like this. It's a principle that is very benefiting when it applies in many different things. So far, because things are going to get more branched out here. So it's permissible to use the aniyah of the kuffar, we know what aniyah means, and also with their garments. Even if these kuffar, it's not permissible for us to eat the dhaba'ih, the slaughtered animals. That means all of the kuffar. No differences between Ahlul Kitab versus not Ahlul Kitab. And the same thing with their thiyab, with their garments. In juhila haluha, the same thing, if it's not known its state being impure or so. Then he says, وَكَذَا مَا صَبَغُوهُ. This is in the sharh. وَكَذَا مَا صَبَغُوهُ أَوْ نَسَجُوهُ. وَكَذَا means, and the same rulings apply. مَا صَبَغُوهُ. الصَّبْغ is dyeing a garment. So they put chemicals in it, colors, to change the color of it. So if they dyed a garment, change its color, then it's pure. It's not something najis. It's all pure. And the same ruling here apply in juhila haluha. If we're not aware of what the state of it, like maybe they made sibgh or they dye it with something impure, right? Maybe they used chemical or something that is impure for us to use. We don't know it. So what's the original ruling is that it's halal. أو نسجوه. نسجوه, and nasij is the garments, is the clothing. They wove it, they manufactured it with threads. And these threads, the original ruling of it, that it's tahir, it's pure, unless we know for sure that this is from something that is impure. So the same ruling applies. وآنية من لابس النجاسة كثيرا. So continuing with the same rulings here, that it's all permissible, it's all to be given the ruling of it's tahir. The aniyah, the containers, man labas al-najasa. Labas al-najasa, the one that is acquainted with the impurities kathiran, a lot. Labas, whether it refers to the garment or refers to someone that is in touch with something. So someone that labas al-najasa kathiran, someone that is frequently touching the najasa in always with the najasa, like what he mentioned that in the next page. He says, وَأَنِيَةُ مَنْ لَبَسَ النَّجَاسَ كَثِيرًا كَمُدْمِنِ الْخَمْرِ. كَمُدْمِنِ الْخَمْرِ. كَمُدْمِنِ الْخَمْرِ. مُدْمِن الْخَمْرِ is the one that is he drinks alcohol, and he is someone that has an addiction to it. So al-idman is the addiction, like someone addicted to drinking. وَثِيَابُهُمْ, and their garments. So when someone is addicted, that means you might even say that most likely that the container of someone like this will have something of khamr or traces of it. And the same thing with one's clothings. No, the same ruling applies. We can't say that this is impure just because he's addicted to drinking wine, and the same thing with the clothings. So we have, this is the hukm. We cannot change the hukm by doubt. Then afterwards, he says, وَبَدَنُ الْكَافِرِ طَاهِرٌ وَكَذَا طَعَامُهُ وَمَاؤُهُ. Al-badan is the physical body of the kafir is pure. And this is a very obvious one. And this is all because of what's mentioned before. This is because the badan of the kafir tahir. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ نَجَسٌ. The disbelievers are najas, are impure. And with the other ayat and with the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, with the shaking hands, things like this, then we know that an-najasa here, it's not the physical najasa, it's not the physical impurity. So وَبَدَنُ الْكَافِرِ طَاهِرٌ. The body of the disbeliever is tahir, is pure. وَكَذَا طَعَامُهُ وَمَاؤُهُ. The same thing with his food and his drinks. So now, uh, again, the matter is very clear. Everything so far is permissible. Everything is permissible, whether it's from the kafir or for someone that is addicted to intoxications. All of that, their aniyah, their containers, and their thiyab and their garments are permissible unless proven otherwise. There's an exception here, لكن this is the exception. لكن تكره الصلاة في ثياب المرضع والحائض والصبي ونحوه. تكره الصلاة. Salah is disliked. Not that it's invalid, not that it's haram, it's only makruh. The salah, to make salah في ثياب المرضع, in the garment of a murdi'. The murdi' is the one that is the woman that is breastfeeding. والحائض, the woman in menses. والصبي, the child. ونحوهم, and the like of them, like the woman after birth bleeding, like this. And this is only makruh, and there's a khilaf, there's a difference of opinions there. That's why, to be on the safe side, to stay away from it. This is what the makruh comes in place. And as you see from all of these masail so far, it has nothing to do with a Muslim versus a kafir. It's about the individuals. So whether the breastfeeding woman is a Muslima or kafira, or the same thing with the menses or the child. So they mentioned that the madhab here is it's still mubah, it's still permissible, but it's makruh, because this is an exceptional situation. That now something that with the tahara of it might be of a question. That's why they mention it as makruh and not haram. Then he says, the next mas'ala, ولا يطهر جلد ميتة بدباغ. Now this is one of the masail. He says here, ولا يطهر, it is not purified. جلد ميتة, the skin of a dead animal, and the mayta is the animal that dies without being slaughtered properly. So whether it's something permissible for us to eat or it's not permissible for us to eat, it's called mayta. So if a goat or a sheep or a cow died with gunshot, then this is mayta, becomes impure, and the skin of it is impure, and everything in it is impure. Even though when it's alive, it was permissible for us, it was pure, everything was fine, but it died without being slaughtered in a proper way. So this is the mayta. So he says the jild, al-jild is the skin of the mayta, the one that died without being slaughtered. So every time we see the word mayta, the animal that died without being slaughtered, so we can just say mayta. But it branches out, inshallah ta'ala. So it does never to be purified with ad-dibagh. Ad-dibagh is tanning the skin using chemicals to change the status of the skin to make it dry for it to be used. This is the madhab here. This mas'ala, and what comes afterwards is one of the good examples to show the differences of opinions among the ulama, and how the ulama rahimahumullah, with the four madhab specifically, of course, when there's differences of opinions, is not differences of opinions that is based on desire. It's differences of opinions based on evidences from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And some of these masail, the difference of opinions are very strong in it, because of the hadith that might mean one thing versus the other. And this is, if we go through the khilaf or the difference of opinions here, it's very much detailed with so many hadith. But let's first take what the madhab says. And there's another riwayah in madhab Ahmad also, and this is the jumhur, that it's permissible, right? So, but first he says, وَلَا يَطْهُرُ جِلْدُ مَيْتَةٍ بِدِبَاغٍ. So now the ruling of the skin of a mayta, if it stands, it's not permissible, it's still impure, not pure. He says here in the sharh, رُوِيَ عن عمر وابنه, it's been reported from Umar radiallahu anhu and his son Abdullah ibn Umar, and Aisha and Umran ibn Husayn radiallahu anhu. So it's been narrated from them that this is the case. وكذا, he says, لا يطهر جلد غير مأكول بذكاة كلحمه. وكذا the same ruling applies, that means it's not pure. لا يطهر جلد غير مأكول, the skin of غير مأكول. غير مأكول, that means animal that is not to be eaten by us. It's not permissible for us to eat. بذكاة, الذكاء with the ذال, your tongue is outside when you say it, not zakah. Zakah is the obligatory charity, the pillar of Islam. الذكاء with the ذال, the tongue goes outside. بذكاء, this is the slaughtering, the proper slaughtering of the animal. So غير مأكول بذكاء, if it's an animal haram for us to eat, if they slaughter it, it doesn't make a difference, which is a very obvious statement here. كلحمي, as the same as the skin. So if they slaughtered a pig, for example, imagine, if people got a pig and they said Bismillah Allahu Akbar and they slaughtered it in the proper way, does it make it permissible for us to eat? The answer is no. If it's a zabiha pig, right, is it make it permissible? Of course not. Why? Because it's haram to eat the skin, or the pig is all haram. So this is the ruling here, is it still continue to be impure if it's an animal that is not permissible for us to eat, whether it's slaughtered or died, it doesn't matter. So it belongs to the first مسألة here. ولا يطهر جلد ميتة بدباغ. Then he says ويباح استعماله. يباح, the ruling is that it's permissible. استعماله, we used that word before. الاستعمال in أنية الذهب والفضة, in the containers of the gold and silver. الاستعمال is for it to be used, but then it's continued. ويباح استعماله بعد الدبغ. It's permissible to be used after tanning. So what is permissible to be used after tanning? The jild, the skin of a meita, which is originally is impure. After it dies, it's impure. But then he says it's permissible to be used. أي استعمال الجلد, it's permissible to use the skin بعد الدبغ, after tanning. بعد الدبغ. He says in the sharh, which comes afterwards, بطاهر منشف للخبث. بطاهر منشف, that means it's permissible to use after being tanned with something that is pure, that would dry out the khabath, dries out the impurities. قال في الرعاية, then he said in the book of الرعاية, ولا بد فيه من زوال الرائحة الخبيثة. لا بد فيه, that means it's a must. The الرائحة, or the smell, has to be removed. The evil or the bad smell has to be removed. So this is a must. If it's not removed, then we cannot use. So this is with regards to the al-isti'mal, or for it to be used. So that means the dabgh or the tanning is used by something pure. They might use something impure to make the dabgh or to make the tanning. But if it's used by something pure and it removes the impurities from the meita and there's no skin to it, then they can use the skin. And the meaning of using it, that means to put things in it, and but not before you say, oh, I can make wudu from it. No, it can be used في يابس. في يابس. اليابس is something that is dry. لا مائع, not liquid. Something solid, not liquid. ولو وسع قلتين من الماء. Even if the skin is made to have water in it that is more than the قلتين. We'll make it easy inshallah after we finish. إذا كان الجلد, this is if the skin من حيوان طاهر في الحياة, if it's from حيوان that is pure while it's alive, في الحياة. In the sharh it says مأكولا, whether it's to be eaten, كان كالشاة, whether it's something that we can eat like the goat, أو لا, or not, كالهرة, which is the cat. So let's go to the read again. So ويباح استعماله بعد الدبغ, it's permissible to be used after tanning. He says في يابس, it's only permissible to be used to make it as a container for something that is solid and not something that is liquid. Clear? So for example, we can put in it grains. You can use it to transport something, right? But not to put liquid in it. And this is for the skin of a mayta after tanning. After tanning, but it's a mayta. That means when it died, it was impure. So this is with regards to that. So the first ruling was if it's an animal that is permissible for us to eat and it's slaughtered, of course it's pure, whether it's before or after. And whether it's before tanning or not, or after tanning, it's all pure. The second case is it's a mayta. If the mayta, an animal that is permissible to eat versus animals that is not permissible for us to eat. The easier one is if it's an animal that is not permissible for us to eat, like pig, for example, then whether it's slaughtered or not slaughtered, it's impure before and after, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's tanned or not. The third case of the mayta, which is the second case of the mayta, but the third case in general, is if the mayta is from an animal that is permissible for us to eat, but it died without being slaughtered. Cows, goats, sheep, it was not slaughtered, it just died. Then the skin, when it dies, when it's fresh, it's impure, it's najis. But if it's tanned with something that is pure, then it's permissible to use in solids and not in liquids. This is according to the madhab, right? وَيُبَاحُ اسْتِعْمَالُهُ بَعْدَ الدَّبْغِ فِي يَابِسٍ. This is the word here, في يابس. من حيوان طاهر في الحياة. The حيوان, the animal has to be pure while it's alive. Right? So whether it's the container that is from the skin is bigger than what can fit in it كلتين or not. مأكولا كان كالشاة أو لا كالهرة. Whether this animal that was pure during the life, whether it's whether it's eaten or not eaten. Right? If it's a cat and less, then it's pure while it's alive. So anything that is less than a cat size-wise, according to the madhab here, that it's pure as long as it's alive. Right? So, and this is with that. أما جلود السباع. As for جلود السباع, the skin of السباع. السباع are the beasts or the animals that they eat meat, like the lions and the wolves and so on. أما جلود السباع, and the tigers, كالذئب ونحوه, like the wolf or the fox, like the wolf. ونحوه مما خلقته أكبر من الهر, which its creation, its body is bigger than the cat. ولا يؤكل, and it's not permissible to eat. فلا يباح دبغه, it's not permissible to be tanned. So the skin of the wolf, the tiger, the lion, and so on, because it's not permissible to be eaten, it's also not permissible to be tanned. ولا استعماله قبل الدبغ ولا بعده, and it's not permissible to be used whether it's before tanning or after tanning. ولا يصح بيعه, and it's not permissible to sell it. So this is continuing with the same ruling here, right? So this is with السباع. It's not permissible whatsoever whether it's before tanning or after tanning. Then he says وَلَبَنُهَا. Now he's continuing with the previous statement, and at the end inshallah ta'ala we'll read al-Mustaqni. وَلَبَنُهَا, and its milk, meaning لبن الميتة, the milk of the mayta. وَكُلُّ أَجْزَائِهَا, and all of its parts. وَكُلُّ أَجْزَائِهَا, like what? كَقَرْنِهَا, like its horn. وَظُفْرِهَا, like its nails. وَعَصَبِهَا, the nerves. وعظمها, and its bones. وحافرها, its hoof. وإنفحتها, وإنفحتها, الإنفحة is the rain, right? Am I saying it right? Let me make sure that the thing that they use to make the cheese and things like this, which is the rennet. The rennet, hopefully I'm saying it right, inshallah. So the rennet, this is not this is the infaha. وجلدتها and its skin. All of that is najisa, the ruling of it, that it's impure. Right? So the milk and all of these different things from the maita, from the animal that died without being slaughtered, is najisa, is impure. فلا يصح بيعها. It is not permissible to sell it. غير شعر ونحوه. Except شعر. الشعر is the hair and the like of it. So الشعر, the skin, is not something that is getting, they separate the rulings of it from the skin, because it's on top of the skin, is not part of the skin. So this is different. كصوف, like the wool. ووبر. الوبر is the same like the wool, the skin of the animals. وريش, feather. من طاهر في حياة, but with the condition that it's pure while it's alive. فلا ينجس بموت فيجوز استعماله. So it does not become impure when the animal died without being slaughtered, therefore it's permissible to be used. So and that's specifically the hair and anything that is not part of the skin of the animal. So here ولا ينجس باطن بيضة مأكول صلب قشرها بموت الطائر. Sometimes we have مسائل here, we just need to understand it and to keep on going, inshallah. ولا ينجس, it's not najis. باطن بيضة مأكول. بيضة is the egg. باطن is the inside. مأكول, something that is to be eaten, it's okay to eat. صلب قشرها, it's القشر is the layer of the outside layer of the egg. If it's hard, not soft, not liquid, بموت الطائر, if the bird died. Basically, if you have a chicken that died, the egg that comes from it after its death, is it permissible or it's not permissible? This is basically what it is. So the egg died and there was inside of it, there was an egg, and the egg came out after the death of the chicken. He says if it's صلب, if it's structured, it's not broken, if it's not liquid, then it's permissible to eat. It's not najis, it's not impure in this case. That means if it's liquid, then it's not permissible. Then he says وما أبين من حي فهو كميتته. وما أبين من حي فهو كميتته. And he says in the Sharh حيوان. أبين, that means if it get detached. وما أبين, أبان, when something becomes clear. So أبين من حي, that means if something get amputated from an animal that is alive, فهو كميتته, the ruling of it, it's like it's ميتة. What does that mean? If a goat, one of its arm get cut off, is it pure or it's not pure? The animal is pure for us, so that means the arm is pure also for us. But if it's an animal that is not pure, pig for example, it doesn't matter. If it's something get cut off from it, it's still impure. So whatever is cut off from the animal takes the same ruling of it if it's alive. He says وما أبين من حيوان حي فهو كميتة. If it's alive, فهو كميتته, it's like it's dead. طهارة ونجاسة. We're talking about the طهارة and the najasa only, whether it's pure or impure. فما قطع من السمك طاهر. What cut off from the fish is pure. وما قطع من بهيمة الأنعام, and what's get amputated or cut from the cattle, ونحوها, and the like of it, مع بقاء حياتها, while it's still alive, نجس. وما قطع من بهيمة الأنعام ونحوها مع بقاء حياتها نجس. So if it's بهيمة الأنعام, if the ruling of it is it's like it's ميتة, and the ميتة is impure because it's not been slaughtered, right? So if what cut off from the ميتة, I'm sorry, what cut off from an animal that is alive, it's like it's mayta. So if the mayta, that means it's been not slaughtered, that means the animal becomes impure, so therefore what get cut off from it is impure. غير مسك وفأرته والطريضة وتأتي في الصيد. So except المسك. مسك وفأرته. المسك وفأرته والطريضة, and this is will come in the chapter of الصيد. And this is where basically the misk, the musk, how it's taken from the deer, and that's, they call it fa'ratul misk. So the liquid inside of it is the misk, is the musk. So it get detached from it. Whether it's, can we apply the same ruling that if it's taken off or out from the deer when it's still alive, can we treat it as mayta, the mayta of the deer? That means it's not permissible. He says this is an exception. It's like the egg, so it's exceptional because it's not part of the skin. And the tarida is the animal that is renegated, ran away. So the people, they're running after him. So they call taradahu nas. The people are running after it to catch it, for example. So they're not able to catch it whatsoever. So someone would throw it with something and it dies. But here you throw it with something, so part of the animal get detached from it while the animal is still alive. So the ruling here, since it becomes its mayta, but this one is an exceptional situation. That means what get detached from it is pure. Why? Because this is darura, or this is something that is a necessity. That means it's okay to be used. So there are many different branches here, but it's as long as we understand every point of it, then we can put it all together, inshallah ta'ala. So if we go back and let's see how we can understand and put things together, inshallah. وتباح آنية الكفار. Let's read together, inshallah, the al-Mustaqni part. وتباح آنية الكفار. The آنية of al-Kuffar, the containers of the kuffar, is permissible. ولو لم تحل ذبائحهم. Even if these kuffar are not permissible for us to eat their ذبائح, which is other than Ahlul Kitab, that means all the kuffar. وثيابهم, their garments are also halal, pure. إن جهل حالها, if its state is not known. ولا يطهر جلد ميتة بدباغ. The skin of a mayta, what's mayta? Animal that died without being slaughtered. It can never be purified with tanning. That's the original ruling here. ويباح استعماله بعد الدبغ. But it's permissible to be used after tanning في يابس, only in yabis. So when is it permissible? If it's for something solid, not something that is liquid. من حيوان طاهر في الحياة. From حيوان, from an animal that is pure during its life. So I would read that again. ويباح استعماله. So when is it permissible to use the skin that is tanned by a mayta, something that died without being slaughtered? It has to fulfill these conditions. So it has to be after it's tanned, and it has to be only used for something that is solid. And the third condition is that this skin has to be from a pure animal. While it's alive, we consider it as pure. He says, وَلَبَنُهَا. All of that refers to the mayta, the animal that died without being slaughtered. وَلَبَنُهَا وَكُلُّ أَجْزَائِهَا, and all of its parts, نَجِسَةً, impure. غَيْرَ شَعْرٍ وَنَحْوِ, except what's not impure, what's pure is the hair and as mentioned in the sharh, and the like of it. وَمَا أُبِينَ مِنْ حَيٍّ فَهُوَ كَمَيْتَةٍ. What got detached or amputated from something that is alive, it takes the same ruling as its mayta. If the mayta of it is najis, like the cattle and everything else, then it's najis. But if the mayta of it, like fish, for example, fish, you don't slaughter fish. So if there's a fish that is alive and someone cuts a piece of it when it's alive, can you eat it? Yes. So وَمَا أُبِينَ مِنْ حَيٍّ فَهُوَ كَمَيْتَتِهِ. And this is whether in matters of tahara or najasa. So I hope it's clear, inshallah. So to make a summary of it very quickly, inshallah, with regards to these مسائل, something that is permissible versus something that is not permissible, and there's something that is makruh, as we heard. And this is all in the subject of the tahara versus the najasa, the purity versus the impurity, and the maita, whether it's maita from an animal that is permissible for us to eat. The animals that are not permissible for us to eat, it doesn't matter whether it's tanned or not, right? So this can be easy to understand. But if it's the animal that's permissible for us to eat and it died without being slaughtered, then this is where the issues comes in place. And this is where, and the same thing with what's amputated from animal that is alive. This is how the madhab is. There is another narration from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah that the skin, if it's tanned by a maita, by a cow or sheep or so that died without being slaughtered, if it's tanned, it's permissible to use, and it's pure and it's not impure. And all of that, as I said, is a clear example of differences of opinions and the jumhur of the ulama that it's pure. And all of that, if you look into the details of it, there's a hadith of Abdullah ibn Ukaym that he, whether the hadith is mansukh or not, abrogated or not, because this is the last statement, or the weaknesses of the hadith, ulama would, there's hadith ayyuma ihabin dubigha faqad tahur, any skin, if it's tanned, then it's pure. So some people, they took this hadith. That means it doesn't matter whether it's to be eaten or not to be eaten, or even najis, even, as some said. Even if it's from a pig. If it's tanned, then it's pure and nothing of it. But this is, again, the majority are not. When it comes to pig, everything is not permissible from it. But you see there's difference of opinions because of the general hadith versus the hadith, Atana Kitab Rasulullah sallam, came to us the book of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أَلَّا تَنْتَفِعُوا مِنَ الْمَيْتَةِ بِإِهَابٍ وَلَا عَصَبٍ. Do not benefit from the mayta with anything, whether it's tanned or not. And this was later. The Prophet, this statement came like 2 months before the Prophet died. But some of the ulama, they say the hadith is muttarib, is not authentic. So this is where you get, some of the differences of opinions in that regard. So, but it's important that at this level we get to know what's mentioned in the book. As far as the practicality with the fatwa of the ulama and things like this, with the jumhur, is they use the ruling of, if it's maita, that it's permissible for us to eat. Then if it's tanned, then it becomes pure. We'll stop here, inshallah. And hopefully it's clear. Read it again. Make sure that the red is our main concern, Zad al-Mustaqni, and to understand every word also in the sharh. And be patient, inshallah, with studying and putting the effort in it, inshallah. And if you find it challenging and difficult, this is how you learn. This is how we learn the matters of fiqh, and we challenge ourselves and we get to understand it. And with more and more effort, then it becomes clear, inshallah. Barakallah fikum. Inshallah, we'll continue next time. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammadin wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.